Hi, it's Todd from Todd's Workshop and Todd Cutler here, and I've got an emergency on my hands. It's my wife's birthday tomorrow and I have to make her a present. So I'm going to make her a kitchen knife out of this rusty bit of junk. And it really is a rusty bit of junk, but it's also a very, very special bit of metal. So why do I think that this piece of steel is special? Well, first, I found it on a walk with my wife and some friends. Secondly, it's a tool. And I know it's a tool because it's got a pry bar end on it. So it's used for moving heavy stuff around. Heavy stuff means it's got to be a good material. Can't be a soft iron or a soft mild steel. If you look at the texture on this rust, you can see it's stripy. It's like a wood grain. And that means it's an old steel. It's a shear steel, a piled steel. It's basically 19th or 18th century or even possibly earlier. That means this is a proper bit of high quality, handmade, old-fashioned, wrought steel. What a find that was. And it is going to be absolutely perfect for a kitchen knife. So I'm going to start working this down now, and I'm going to do a combination between forging and grinding for this blade. Most of my work is done with stock removal. I do a little bit of light forging on guards and pommels and stuff like that. But big stuff like this is not really where I'm at. So I've got a colleague here with a sledgehammer, and we'll do a bit of hammer team action on it and hopefully draw it out a bit. But it is actually going to be pretty hard work at this size and this quality of material. You can really smell the salt in this because I found it on a beach, in fact. Some progress is being made, thinning it out, widening it, lengthening it. But the other thing is, I've never done a hammer team like this before, so that's also quite interesting. Anyway, we'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. You can tell from the sweat that I've had enough now, so I'm going to crop it off and I'm going to grind from here. But we've got a long way through it. The beginnings of a present. So I've started to grind the blade down now, and those of you familiar with steels are going to be looking at the sparks coming off it, which are not that big and fat and juicy, and saying there is no way that that is knife steel. But the old kind of piled steels, shear steels, they behave differently, and the sparks at this stage are not really going to be there. Not as if it was a piece of medium carbon spring steel. So what I'll do is I'll carry on shaping it down a bit, and then we'll start to hit the sides. So we have the crude beginnings of a knife shape, and I'm just going to start thinning this blade down now and balancing up the two sides. You can see that from where the tang is going to be, the blade is offset that way. So I'm just going to start thinning it from here and balancing the forms. So I've finished profiling the blade now, and the next thing is to mark out and start to cut down where the tang's going to be. But one of the things to notice about it is it just looks like a piece of steel. It doesn't look like it's anything interesting at all. That's going to come out in the etch. So you just have to trust me that later on you're going to start seeing that this steel is something quite special. At the moment, it doesn't really look like anything much at all. But the other thing is, I've left a bit of bulk in the blade there because I want a bit there when I do the heat treatment on it, because these things can be a little bit variable. But the other thing is, you may have noticed, it's still slightly off center. Now I'm going to put a touch mark on here, and generally speaking with a blade that thick, I'd grind that touch mark away. So what I'm deliberately doing is I'm going to put the touch mark in on one side now and basically grind off the other side to balance it up. I have a roll of tape and the blade, and I'm very simply going to wrap the tape around the shoulders of the blade there. And if I follow the lines of the tape, the line will be straight. Just makes it very easy. Cut the bulk of the tang away, and I'm just going to slim it down and smooth it out a little bit. It's time for me to put the touch mark on, and usually of course I do for Todd's Workshop pieces the circle broken into 4. My wife's got a thing about hearts, so I'm going to use a heart stamp for the touch mark here. Get the blade hot, you put your touch mark in, you punch it in, a little bit of borax, and then I come back with a bit of copper to infill it. So I put the touch mark on here. I haven't copper filled it yet. Let's have a look. So there you can see it, little black heart, not the look I wanted. I'm going to sandblast out the flux that's in the bottom and clean that up. So the flame's not too fierce. Bit of borax in there. Bit of preheat on my copper. This copper melts seriously hot. They're getting lots of copper all over the area. It's not a precision job. So the next stage, once it's cooled, is to clean off as much of that copper as we can. So I've ground away the copper, and you can see now that we've got that heart shape upside down for you. It's a little bit indistinct, but it will actually sharpen up a little bit as I grind deeper and clean up. But there we have it. So the next thing is, I'm going to start shaping down this bolster area here, getting the tang, and then pre-fitting the wooden handle to it, and then we will do the heat treat. Where I cut and ground the tang earlier on, obviously it's not completely perfectly flat, so I'm just going to go in and file it. Now this steel at the moment is relatively soft, so it files quite easy. So the blade is now rough ground, you can kind of see what shape it is, and the intersection between the tang and the bolster is cleaned up. That's going to allow me to get a good fit between the handle and the blade. So first up, I'm going to hot fit a horn component and then the wood itself. But check this out. It's a bit of spalted boxwood. Box is really hard, good English European wood for this kind of thing. But the grain on that is going to be lovely, of gold and chocolates, and it's going to be great. So I'm going to crop this out, make a small pilot handle, and then we'll hot fit the tang. Look at that. So I'm going to burn the components on now, which will ensure a really good fit. Of course, this is all done before the blade is heat treated. You can do it when the blade has been heat treated, but you've got to be a lot more careful. And if you want to do something really stinky in your workshop, do this. Woo. Time for the wood. Done. So we have a horn spacer, we have a blade, and we have a block of wood for the handle, and they all go together. So I'm going to glue the horn and the wood together, and then that's going to be locked solid onto the handle, makes it very easy to make. And the glue I prefer to use is a 2-part epoxy. So it comes out already mixed, and you just inject it on where you want it. It's brilliant. So that's just a 5-minute one. So I'll see you in 5 minutes. So that's in the vise now and just curing off. But while that's doing that, I thought I'd just say the horn spacer. It's pretty. Yeah, got it. It's got a practical use too. Because the chance of getting this bolster handle intersection completely flat and perfect, it's a really difficult thing to do. The chance is low. You're going to see those undulations in it. You put black against that and you don't see it nearly so much. So putting the black in there rather than, let's say, a white spacer makes your life much, much easier. And it still looks pretty as heck anyway. And there it is. However, I think it's a bit clunky at this point here. So I'm gonna just make sure, yeah, I'm gonna thin it down a little bit at that section there because I'm not so keen on it right now. Just a bit bulky. So our blade is done, our handle is fairly close, and I've got to heat treat this before the final grind. Generally speaking, you get it up to red hot, obviously. You quench in oil. Most steels like that. Some take water. The old ones, like this, will not get hard enough if you quench in steel. So you quench in water, and then you temper quite hard as well. So I'm just going to go straight into the quench tank that I use for grinding blades here. Here we go. Hopefully it was going to be straight. It's not. I don't know how much you can see there. There's a bit of a bend on it. Anyway, it's into the temper oven now, and then when it's up at temperature, we'll bend it straight. I'm just going to get the blade out of the tempering oven now, and I'm going to have to work fast because it's got a slight warp, and while it's still hot, temper hot, I can bend it a bit. Colder than that, it risks to break. But it's all going to be action now. Okay, well that was an easy one. So yeah, that's going to be fine. So if you do it at temper temperature, the steel is much more forgiving. So do it then and everything is almost always fine. So I've ground it down to 240 and it's all clean and it's all looking fairly tidy. But now I'm going to put it on the surface conditioning mop over here and then get it ready for the etch. So we have our blade and now we're going to etch it with ferric chloride. So what that's going to do is going to bring out the grain structure that's there. But the other thing about this ferric chloride is a long time ago I managed to pollute it by etching some brass. Now what that means is it's going to, as part of the etching process, it's going to start to deposit copper as well. And of course we've got the copper touch mark here. What's going to happen, I wouldn't use this regularly, I use it on film props quite often, is it's going to etch the steel, but it's also going to leave a tracery of copper. And I think that looks really cool. Let's just have a very quick dunk. And you can see it beginning to change the colour. So the blade's been in this ferric chloride for a couple of hours now. I would have liked to have left it longer. But anyway, it's an emergency knife and it's the birthday tomorrow. Now you can see this really strange copper tarnish to it. If your ferric chloride is clean, then it doesn't do it. This is a long way from clean, but I kind of like the effect. So I'm going to scrub that now. Now mostly, as you can see, that's going to come off. But down in the little deep parts, you just get little flecks of copper. It looks jet black. Let's just give it a little wash down. So there it is. You can see in the low spots there, you've got little flecks of copper. And that actually is a plating. It won't just rub off. Also, you can begin to see the structure of the steel. You can see it's not homogeneous. It's not a modern mild steel or medium high carbon steel. It is a shear steel. It is 19th century, 18th century, something like that. Just almost impossible to know. So first of all now, I'm going to neutralise all those acids with bicarbonate of soda. So this process is simple. Alkali, it's got some acids on it. Put some bicarbonate of soda, baking soda, onto the blade. So that's going to neutralise any of the acids, but of course it's got a grain structure on here. So I'm going to want to work that in just to make sure that it's deep into the grain. Because the last thing I want to do is give this lovely knife as a present and in 2 days time find out it's got loads of active rust on it. And then it's just final rinse off and we're ready to just give the blade a very light polish and a honing, get it nice and sharp. So I'm just going for a final hone on it, just on a diamond stone. And you can actually feel when it's starting to get properly sharp. The sound changes and the resistance required changes. And that should, if we tilt that down, shave. There we are. So I have a pot of linseed oil here and I'm actually using a medieval fish spear which works brilliantly for pinning things down with its little barbs on it. So this is a spalted boxwood. So spalting is when you get a rot into the timber, but it's in the cell body, not in the cell wall. So it colours the timber, but it doesn't, at the early stages, affect its structural integrity at all. So what you've got is, instead of the usual sort of golden, fairly bland colour of boxwood, you've got this. Give it another few months of rotting and it would be unusable. But at this stage, it is just glorious. So now, the final stage is to glue the two together. So that'll be held under tension now while the glue cures. A little bit of space gives me a chance to clean off any of the excess glue, of which there is going to be some. But the beauty is the wood has been oiled and the glue doesn't really stick to it very well. Obviously I was careful to keep the oil from the inside. And that's it. It's finished. It's kind of groovy. It's also kind of subtle. And the reason it's subtle is this isn't a sort of a coarse, made for appearance piled steel where everybody goes, oh, look what that is, I know what that is. This was a working, homogeneous steel, as best as they could make it. So it went from a podge bar, pry bar, call it whatever you want, working tool, to a knife. And it's great. And it is now 10 to 6, time to go in, ready to wrap up for tomorrow morning. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and we've got another channel as well, which is Tog Cutler on YouTube, and so that's like sort of more of the niche stuff, book reviews, tool reviews, all sorts of stuff. Go check that out. We've got a Patreon, always welcome. And we've got 2 amazing websites, because if you like this kind of stuff, go and have a look at those. Oh, it's lambing season as well. Go and have a look at those websites, because it will definitely interest you. See you again. Bye.